And we're live. Hola, hola, hola. Welcome, everyone. Let me be the first to say happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Um, I am your host, Coffee. My name is Alberta. I'm Coffee.
My name is Tiffany. I'm Katie.
And today we are having a discussion on overcoming grief in the Black community due to gun violence. But first, we must acknowledge Dr. King's birthday.
Yeah, so
Go
today
ahead,
we
Tiff.
celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. He was an advocate of nonviolent protest and became the youngest man to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And he was assassinated in 1968. A fact that I want to share that I learned today, so I'll go ahead and read it. In 1968, shortly after Martin Luther King died, a campaign was started for his birthday to become a holiday to honor him. After the first bill was introduced, trade unions led the campaign for the federal holiday. It was endorsed in 1976, following support from the musician Stevie Wonder with his single "Happy Birthday." I didn't know that. And the petition with 6 million signatures, the bill became law in 1983. Martin Luther King Day was first observed in 1986, although it was not observed in all states until the year 2000. One word that is synonymous with Dr. King is overcome. Tonight's topic is overcoming grief in the Black community due to gun violence. So, how do we do that? Where do we begin? How do we begin that journey to stop the hurt and begin to heal? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. And our grieving families matter. So tonight we're here to listen, we're here to support, and it is our hope that as a community that we come together and start the healing process. Tonight's guests will share their stories and their truths. And we thank you all for participating tonight. Okay.
Thank you so much, Cream. And I would like to thank Julius Peak, Mrs. Freddie Hamilton, Mrs. Mariel Banks Curtis, and Patrick Johnson for joining us today. I want to be the first to say I'm sorry for your loss. I know this may be difficult, but please let us acknowledge that this is a safe space. And if I can't do nothing else for you, I will lift you up in prayer. And I want to first start by, I want to start with Mrs. Hamilton, who is the president of the board president of Rebuilding the Village. And my first question to you is, one, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
Okay. I'm doing fine. Thank you, Coffee.
And can you please tell us about your loved one? And can you just tell us about your loved one?
I can. Yes. I lost my younger son, Njuzi Ray, in 1993. So he's been gone a very long time. There's no way actually to describe what happens when you're thrown into that kind of grief. When you lose a child, people always say that you never think you're going to lose a child. You think that you are going to die before your children. And so I can't think of the times that I had conversations with Njuzi about what he should do when I die. And it never could have dawned on me that he would be the person. He was killed at 17, 1 month before his 18th birthday. And I can tell you that the only thing I can tell you is that God is good. We feel the prayers of others. When we, it's interesting how when people pray for us, when we're in that kind of grief, we can feel those prayers lift us. And right now, I have a friend that's in a nursing home, and she basically said to me, you know, I feel your prayers. So prayers are helpful. Another thing that helped me through it were other people around me that, you know, your community becomes so important when you're going through that kind of trauma, because sometimes the smallest thing that a person does for you makes such a difference. So I had people reach out to me for any number of things. And I think the way I began to heal was through activism. I became very active. Um, I was available to other people who had recently lost their kids. People would call me and say, would you talk to my aunt or would you talk to my cousin? I don't think they're going to make it through this. And then I would get on the phone and talk with them. And so we came together. When I was in Brooklyn, we came together as a little community of people who had lost their loved ones. We offered support to each other. And those in the community who understood and sympathized also lent their efforts and their prayers and helped us. Are we all muted?
I mute myself.
Oh,
Muriel,
okay.
same question. I would like to know, how are you doing today? And if you can tell us about your loved one.
You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Again, I'm doing great. I am really in a good spot today. I've lost two. I lost my son and my mother that was close to me. My mother was killed by a drunk driver, and my son was murdered gunshot. 2 years, matter of fact, a year and a half apart. A year and a half apart, they were both murdered, killed. But like Miss Freddie said, it was the community and my family that really got me through it. And talking to other people too. My son was 23. His name was Orlando. He had just had a baby 2 weeks before he got killed. So I'm now looking at his son at the age of 13, looking like his identical twin. So he's there. I said he never left me. You know, I
That's
I
right.
still see him. He's built like him. He walked like him. He talked like him. His everything is his father all over again.
Mhm.
And so I every now and then I still like get that ache when I see him because it's something that he does that reminds me so much of him. Then it's like, okay, I thought I got over this, you know. But like I was telling Tiffany earlier, you don't get over it. You just get
Yeah.
through it. You
Mhm.
know, it's just a through thing. My mom was a shock to me, but I still a scent, a fragrance, a speaking of everything. But I've learned to deal with it. I learned to handle it. You never get through it, but you learn to handle it. That's how I see it. But I'm doing right, good. And I just lost a close cousin of mine, Veronica. So she was a big part of my life. She helped me raise my kids. So it's like, here we go again. Another branch broke off, you know, but
Mhm.
I'm doing good.
Okay, good. Julius, same question. I want to know, how are you doing? And if you can tell us about your loved one.
Yes, my name is Julius Pete. Uh, what I can say about my loved ones is, since the family look up to me, all I could do is just hang in there. Yeah, I take a lot of pain and suffering, but I don't show it. It's somebody in the family that got to be stronger instead of, going crazy or retaliating. Yeah, my words get out there sometimes. That's because of frustration, but deep down, I'm being humble about everything that's going on. Like when my cousin Mark being murdered, you know, and the one we recently had about my Aunt Jackie was sad. Uh, Nobody really knew what really happened, but I'll say it on the book on this page. We seen her the day before Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving she died, but
Mm.
she was in her house for 2 weeks. So, and we called her, and Gloria and everybody called her on Thanksgiving. So, but no answer. So we called her for days on end, days on end. But she was a person that liked to be by herself. So, you know, a lot of people took it as that, you know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
that was another thing that hit home. So
Mm-hmm.
when that hit, you know, us being up here and her kids out of state and all that, you know, us as a family had to take care of it, which is no problem, but that is a lot of suffering and burden.
It is.
So that's all I be going through. I'll just be trying to be strong about a lot of situations. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we talk about gun violence in our community, I think sometimes people don't understand the actual impact that it has on the entire community. What was the great? And I know a loss is a loss, and but what was the greatest impact of the loss that it had on you as an individual or a family? I know sometimes they say that if you're married or in a relationship and you experience that, sometimes the marriage doesn't survive.
That's right.
What was the greatest impact other than the loss that was on your you as an individual or family? I'll start with Mariel first this time.
Well, my biggest impact, I noticed that with my son getting killed, my kids shutting down. My
Mm-hmm.
kids don't talk about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
get together when they're together. I'll step out the room and they'll hold a whole conversation about it. But as soon as I step in the room, they stop the whole conversation. And I know that that's the thing is they quiet about it with me. But I'd rather for them to talk to me about it, you know. But they tend to keep it to themselves and don't want mommy involved in this because they think that they're hurting mommy by talking about it. But if they can, I keep telling them they can get to the point we can all talk about it. We all need to talk about it because we all need to know how each other's feeling. And I know to this day they still dealing with it. They're still dealing with it with their brother being lost because, as they say, the link is broken, the chain is broken. There's a link that's missing, and I surprised them this summer. I went and got a tattoo, and I got a tattoo of an elephant with bubbles coming out of his trunk, but the middle bubble is popped, and it represents him. So it was
Oh,
like
okay.
when they all seen it, they were like crying. They was like, and I was like, it's okay, you know, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel it, you know. But they tend my kids tend to shut down with me to talk about their brother. Yeah, that's my
Right.
biggest part of them not talking with me about it.
Right. And Julius, I know like with your family and I know there was an issue where there was a family member versus a family member. How did that impact you as an individual and your family?
Well, myself, it hurt it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it was out of this world. But it hurted the family both ways. They looked at us different ways, you know what I'm saying? So but we had to come to a point where we had to talk about it. And like we had nothing to do with it. That was just a dumb act what my cousin did. So yeah, like in the beginning, like they was making the arrangements for the funerals. They didn't want the peach there, this and that. So me being who I am, humble as I could try to be, I picked up the phone call. No, we're not gonna have it. It was just dumb act. You know what I'm saying? So then we was able to come by them calling my aunt Gloria, and boom, boom, we went off with what she was saying. So she talked to them, and we was
So
able
how
to
did
come.
you
But it did hurt both sides. You know what I'm saying? It hurted both sides. To deal with it,
right.
oh my god.
Um yeah. I know it because I know it's kind of fresh and that's why I'm trying to be uh as gentle as I can. Um has that
We
affected
got
the family dynamics in any way?
we have to be
Has that affected the
honest
family?
nowadays. Yeah, it affected the family in many different ways. There's a lot of things affected the family still now with Mark. You know what I'm saying? See, people don't know the story behind that. So we dealing with that where another family member could be involved with that. So it's a lot going on that we're dealing with and trying to get to the point of a lot of things was going on with us. And it seems like the devil is riding us hard, and bad as we try to defeat him, is he's still riding us. And all the pressure always on
Right.
me and Aunt Glory, because we the ones with a level head. You know what I'm saying? So the pressure
Right.
is always on us. What we gonna do for this funeral? What we gonna do this? How we gonna keep the family together? Let's do this and that. So it comes with a lot. It comes with a lot. It's a lot of pressure.
Right. Before I go to Mr. Patrick, I know like you're heavily involved in the community, and I know when these issues arise, people seem to come to you for guidance. How do you deal with the emotional impact of something that happens in this capacity, especially of people that you know?
Sure. Yes. Well, first I want to acknowledge the losses that of Muriel, Mrs. Hamilton, and Julius, and all of the people, when we're talking about the grief and healing in the Black community, all of the people who have been touched and impacted. I extend my deepest condolences. And I think about the closest I think that homicides have come to me is losing two cousins. But to answer your question, Alberta, which is a really good one, yeah, a lot of people do come to me, and like many of us, I've been to countless funerals. One of the things that I really try to do is deep listening. Just dive in and listen, because often I just came from a woman's house an hour ago, and Craig was there with me, and she talked about the grandson she lost a year ago, and the trauma that the people are listening to. And sometimes what I do, if the person doesn't ask me, what should I do next? Although sometimes that often happens, is to authentically, genuinely listen. And then ask some questions without giving concrete answers. Because I know that one thing that I know when we're hurting about anything, that process of letting go takes so long for some of us. And I can only begin to imagine when you lose a child like Muriel and Mrs. Hamilton, who's to say what your process is? So I've heard people, and for some reason, especially mothers, when they talk about somebody that they lost, I don't care if it was a year ago or 10 years ago, there's a way that sometimes they like talking about it. I think that's part of working through the grief.
That's right.
I have a cousin who died, I'm guessing it's about 10 years ago. Every year they hold a memorial. And so we all have our own way. And I think the key is finding your way, finding your groove. But the whole community, I came up with this term years ago that, as Black people, I know that we typically don't go to your traditional counseling centers, most of us or many of us. So I like to say, pardon my French, but the ghetto is in need of therapy. We all need some sort of, and brothers find their therapy on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
The institution of the corner is where we find healing with Jamal and Malik. Pardon my French, but sometimes the uptown guy or woman with the master's or the PhD is not the trick right now. It's somebody who knew my loss, who knows my pain, and knows the terrain of the jungle, the day-to-day hustle, and that impact. And they just want you to listen. So whether they're holding a bottle of Colt 45, or if it's that church-going mother or grandmother, they want that village support. So I don't pretend that I have all the answers, but I know I better put everything down and give my undivided attention. The key is deep listening and being there with them until they ask me, what do you think I should do?
Right. Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Hamilton? The same question. What was the greatest impact besides the loss?
What was the greatest impact on me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Other
Well,
than the loss, I know the
other
loss
than
is.
the loss, one of the things that happened for me was that I was thrown into a community that I had not known anything about. You know how sometimes people will say um, you would prefer not to be a part of that community. People can be right in your presence or right in your area, and you don't know their pain and suffering. You have never experienced exactly what they've experienced. And so when I lost my son, I was thrown into a community of people who had experienced the same thing. And so, and for us throughout this country, there are groups of people who come together who've lost loved ones, but particularly people who've lost children and people who've lost children through gun violence. Because in America, 40 or 50 thousand people a year are just killed from gun violence, senseless gun violence, and it's predominantly in our inner cities. So there are groups. I learned that there were groups throughout the country, Mothers Against Gun Violence, a group in Philly called Mothers in Charge, a group in Buffalo called Peace. And all of these little organizations have used sometimes 10, 15, 20 women, usually women, sometimes men, who come together and form organizations just to support each other and to work to be active around trying to reduce gun violence in their communities, trying to work with other parents who newly experienced it, trying to change laws or whatever it is that they're trying to do to make a difference for other people in the community. And so that's what impacted me initially, that I found myself all of a sudden exposed to people, all of these little pockets of groups and people who were suffering just like I was. And so, and we learned to work together, stick together, move together, uh, and try to figure out. And it's been years, so it's a tough issue. Try to figure out ways to reduce the gun violence in our communities, ways to save our kids. Because when we lose a child to death, when we lose a adolescent to death, we basically lose two. We lose the perpetrator because that's it. They're going to jail and they're going to spend many years there. And we lose that child that lost his life. And so the community takes a loss both ways. And so I was thrown into a world that I had not experienced before. I didn't even know it existed. But I'm blessed. I feel blessed that I know these people. I know people all over the country, all over America, who are working on the ground level all the time as a result of them losing loved ones, and they're working trying to reduce this gun violence. So that's primarily how I was impacted. And let me say this, the other thing that happened was I became a lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against all of the gun manufacturers in America, just because we feel like uh, they are encouraging the proliferation of guns, of illegal guns. And as we went through that lawsuit, we learned that manufacturers, in fact, do. They produce more guns in southern states than they have residents. They produce more guns than people who live in the states because they know those guns are going to be sold and trafficked in other states where there are strong gun laws. And so I learned a lot. I learned about the politics of guns, and I met so many people that I love that have been friends and colleagues all of these years.
Okay, thank you. So again, our topic is overcoming grief in the Black community. And as I attempted to research the city of Utica and to see if they had resources for that, I know they used to have a mom of murdered sons. They don't have that anymore. That I couldn't find, but I found it I guess the national headquarters is in Baltimore, I believe. And
Excuse me.
go ahead.
Then Muriel had that group. Muriel,
I
what was
had
your
a
group?
group. I had a group. It was. I still have it, but I haven't been doing it. It's called After the Storm, and I
Mm-hmm.
started the group, but I end up being where I didn't have no place to hold the group. I had no place. Everywhere I went to hold the group, they were like, "No, we can't give you the room. No, we can't rent you the room." So it was like I had nowhere to give it, but I still have all the qualifications. I still stay in contact with some of the women that was coming to the group, and they keep saying, "When you gonna start it? When we gonna get back together?" And then
Yeah, you had like over
that's
20.
what that's my hold up is finding a place to have it.
Okay. Um. hmm. So overcoming grief in the Black community, and I think the key part of that is coming together as a community to even like implement steps. Like Miriam said, she needs assistance with finding a location to hold the group. Um, I don't even know where to start. Where can we start, Mr. Grant? I mean, of course, we can always say, "Oh, contact the churches, do this, do that." That of
I'm
course would be your
always
first.
gonna. You hear me? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm always gonna start with churches.
Mhm.
So if your church, if there are a few churches in the community that can't give space to hold a group like that, that's a shame. You know what I mean? And as a Black community, it seems like we always have to look for some place or whatever, and the establishments that we have are either too high or there's an issue with renting them. But that's a, I mean, we should be able to do that. Fortunately, now with technology, I would say for those of the women or what have you that have uh, computer, phone, or whatever, do some virtual groups or something like that now. But I understand what you're saying, Muriel, and I know that you worked hard at that. And I take my hat off to you because I know that it was probably difficult, getting that started and what have you. I'm a little bit late, started a little bit late. As Patrick said, I was putting on a lot for the lady that had some issues in the community. And so it took a little bit longer than I expected. My father told me a long time ago that people at funerals, that the people that were crying weren't necessarily crying for the people at the funeral. And I didn't realize that until I was crying for him at somebody else's father's funeral. So I'm saying that to say that sometimes we don't get over grief. Oh, hold on. That might be this fan that's making this noise. Pardon me. If not, I don't know. So in the black community, maybe any community, we go on, we get along, we get through, but we don't. Sometimes we never get over the loss of of our loved one. And with me, it started grief or no die. It started when I was like 5 years old. When hold up, am I doing this right? When this young man, if you could see my finger, let's see. Hold up. Can you see that? Now you'll see a little boy at the top. If I'm doing this, can you see?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that was my 11-year-old cousin, and I was 6 years old at the time. He got killed in a race riot in Brooklyn, New York. So at that age,
Mm.
I knew that he was. It was all over. I still had the papers and everything. I knew that he was killed. We knew that he was killed by gun violence. It happened to be uh, an individual brother in our community in Brooklyn that we knew, loved, and everything. And it was accidental. I mean, he still killed him. He was trying to kill a cop during
Mhm.
this race riot. My aunt, I'm gonna make this real short and sweet. My aunt had moved into a Brooklyn community, and Italian, Irish, white, and Polish did not want blacks to move into that particular area. There was a group called the Sponges. It was the Society for the Prevention of Negroes Getting Everything. So, but my cousin was killed in a race riot. I was 6 years old. So I had to understand at an early age, that people could die other than being sick and old, and guns could do that, So nobody, at that point in time, we knew what happened. I knew what happened. And no one really sat me down and said anything. See, that because I knew, basically. And a lot of times in the Black community, we're supposed to have thick skin. We're supposed to be used to these type of things happening. So we go on, we get through it and what have you. And we're traumatized. And many times, like I said, we just never really get through it. I agree that counseling is necessary. And we need to start at a young age. And there's different ways that people die. When people are sick, when people are blessed to be old enough, 70 and 10 and what have you, and beyond, and pass away peacefully. But in accidents, but when somebody is killed by a gun, and then to add insult to injury, when it's supposedly an accident, a drive-by, when somebody shouldn't have got the bullet. You know what I mean? And we have to explain that to these younger ones and whatever. But it's harder depending on the type of grief you're dealing with. When somebody's 90 years old and they pass away, as upset as you are, you can get through that a little bit better, I think, unless it's a husband or a wife. But so I just wanted to chime in and add in, something.
Mr. Green, you said about the Black community and the Black churches of donating their building. I tried that, and the thing is with me is I didn't want to go. They wanted me to come into the church, and they wanted to make it a church thing. But that wasn't what my program was about. My thing wasn't about a church thing. My thing was about reaching out to mothers who have lost their children, and us getting together and talking about how we feel. But the churches wanted to make it about a church thing, and that's not what I wanted. I understand you can let me use your building, but you're not getting ready to take over my program. You're not getting ready to take over my agenda, because that wasn't my agenda. Yes, I love God, and I want them to know about God, but sometimes you have to reach people where they at. The women I was dealing with didn't go to church. They knew about God, but they didn't go to church, and I didn't want that church forced on them. And that's what they were saying. Well, I ain't going in that church because that's what they're going to do. And that's what they were trying to do. And I didn't want that. I wanted us to come as a group and be comfortable, not to be like preached to and not to be thrown at the word. That wasn't what I wanted. It was like a group thing. And it was I wanted it to make a comfortable place for us to meet, not a church thing. I didn't want to make it out of a church thing. And that's the whole thing why they say, oh no, you can't hold it here, because they want to take over. It wasn't like that. So
I understand.
So how can we overcome it? How can we overcome it? How can we overcome it together? I mean, what can we do?
We need to talk more about it, because we as a Black community, we don't talk about it. Like Patrick said, we need counseling. We as a Black community, we was always told what's done in this house stays in this house, and you better not tell a soul. You can't, it's time out for that. It's time out for that. We need to talk about it. We need to talk more about it, because it's been too hush-hush in our community. And the more you keep quiet, the worse it's going to eat at you. Yeah. And I learned that the more I talk about it, the better I get, and we got to learn to let them know you need to talk about it. You can't hide behind. I got one person I tried to get to come to my program for years. And I know she stayed in the house for years and wouldn't talk about it. Wouldn't even want to have nothing to say about her child. I don't know she was older than me. I don't know how old she is now. But I know at one time, they're almost 10 years before she even talked about her child or even came out the house. That's not good.
Well, I think, you can't push something on people. I've known the people who, um, when you don't handle that grief. I've actually known people to die shortly after they lose their loved ones because they haven't handled that grief.
Mhm.
But still, you can't make people, and also the amount of stress can harm your body. Sometimes people become disabled. They can't move around. They can't walk. All of that is from the burden of that
Yeah.
stress that you haven't figured out how to release or how to deal with. But at the end of the day, you can't go any further than people will let you go, and that's the hard
Yeah.
part. But I do think that when people get together and understand
Mhm.
better, and support each other, it's therapeutic to talk about it. It's
Yep.
therapeutic to talk about your loved one. And sometimes people who haven't had that experience don't feel comfortable talking with you about it. But just the fact of being able to call that person's name and recount memories, and maybe to create a scrapbook of their words, of their images, and all of that is so therapeutic for us to be able to share, to have that kind of sharing experience. But Muriel, I'm with you. I've known people that absolutely you can't get them to participate. I know people who've lost two and three and four loved ones, young people, and they just freeze. They don't even go through the grieving process. They just freeze in place. And when that happens, it's very, very hard for them. It's very hard on their health. And sometimes it causes them their lives.
Yeah. And I just
I know
want
for
to.
me, I had. Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh no,
Go
no, go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was
Yeah,
just
I was
gonna
gonna say,
add.
as for me, I didn't have anyone. I didn't have anyone pass away from gun violence. However, when I lost my mother, I lost a child, and so I had some other back-to-back losses. It took about 3 to 5 years, honestly, for me to get through that amount of grief. And I didn't understand what I was going through. It wasn't
Right.
until I found a program online. It was called griefshare.org, where it's a national program where I was able to learn the grief process and understand all these feelings and emotion that I was feeling was normal, that I wasn't crazy, that it's gonna take time for me. I only have one mother. It's gonna take time for me to get through that. And there's some people it could take 3 days. There's some people it could take 30 years. My process was a totally different process than any. And I was so thankful that I found this program because at the time I was here, I moved to a new city where I didn't have many friends or family here. And I used to pray to God every day, please do not wake me up. I'm in too much pain. I do not want to wake up tomorrow. And then I started my own research. So what is the one thing that you wish you had during that time? I know you have family and friends and they come over, they cook you dinner, they bring you food for maybe a week or even 2 weeks. What is the one thing that you wish you had during that time of grief that you were going through?
I can't think of
Julia,
anything.
go
I
ahead. You can
can't
go,
think of.
Freddie.
I can't. Yeah, I can't think of anything more that I could have wished for. I got lots of support. I already had a relationship with God. I understood that it was my son, no matter the circumstances, in my mind, it was my son's time to die because I know that if it wasn't, God wouldn't have let it happen. And so for me, my biggest concern was, how we grow up as Christian. I grew up as a Christian. And so there's so many unanswered questions about the transition. What happens when you die? And for me, when I lost my son, that became a crucial question for me. And so I went deep into research. I pretty much researched most of the major religions. I wanted to figure out that common theme about life and death. So I spent several years just reading everything I could find, uh, trying to get deeper into my own spirituality and my relationship with the Lord. Um, and I could find comfort that way. Um, so together with that and the people that I learned, I met, people I learned about, people that I was able to get support from. Healing takes a long time. I'm talking to you about somebody that died. He died at 17. At his last birthday, he would have been 42. So we're talking a long time. And one of the first grief groups I went to, there was a man there talking about his son's death, because we would share those stories. And it sounds so raw. He started crying, and I said, "But when did you lose your son?" And he said, 8 years ago. And that shocked me. That scared me, because I didn't think I could stay in that kind of pain for 8 years. But it's a long process.
It really is.
Sometimes you take a few steps forward and you take many more back. Sometimes when you least expect it, you just get thrown into that grief all over again. So it's a hard pull, but I feel very blessed in terms of everything that was involved. What I learned, I think I got deeper into my spirituality. I think my relationship with the Lord grew. I think I learned so much, and I feel blessed about the people that I met. And so, life is life. We're all born and we all die, and we don't know when it's going to be. So I think I was able to, I was strengthened, even as strange as that sounds. I think I was strengthened as a person in terms of just living my life.
Right. So, Julius, I know yours is fairly fresh. What do you need right now as a family, as an individual, to help you get through these grieving process? What do you feel like you need?
Well, honestly, sometimes inbox, message, anything to check on me. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Because I've been going
Yes.
through a lot. And then for that to be the first murder that ever happened in our family, that
Mhm.
really hit. And then it stressed my aunt out, who holds the family together, Aunt Gloria, who really holds us. So that had her stressed out. So it's a lot. It was a lot with that. Sometimes being cheered up is just good for me. That's
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
So there's somebody checking in on you, making sure, you good, or if you need to talk. Are you open to receiving grief therapy?
Cool, mate. No, I handle that very well. It's just checking up on me, because I'm the one that usually they call me when it's time. So you know what I'm saying? The pressure be on me when it's time. So I'll be going through trying to handle this, arrangements, this, talking to directors. So that's it.
But what do
So,
you do? What
Usually,
do
like,
you do to take care of you during this time? What do you do to take care of you during this time? Because it'll get to anybody. You can be strong. You can be the strongest person in the world.
yeah, you could be
What are you
strong.
doing to take care of you?
Yeah, like the average person, I believe in the man above. With me, I just need some time to lay down and think.
right.
That's it. Or give me a couple, 3 to 4 days with none of the family members like really hitting me like that for some mess. Cause all our stuff been like mess lately. So that's all I be needing. You know what I mean?
So you
Some
need a
time.
vacation. I need
Huh?
like a vacation somewhere just to. I said, so you need like
Yeah,
a
I need
vacation
cash.
somewhere just to debrief.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was crazy. My vacation was with my dad. My dad passed too. So I just was handling it. I'm handling it like as a man, just trying to be strong for the family. When they down, I'm there to hug them, this and that, stuff like that. I just be strong about a lot of things.
Mhm.
Sometimes I barely even shed a tear because I'm being strong. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's it. I'll just be trying to be strong for the family.
Right.
Well, it's
So
got to be
So, Mary,
somebody.
what's the one thing you wish you had? What
I
during
would
that
tell
time?
you
What's
it
the
was
one thing
somebody.
if you didn't have?
I would tell you if it was somebody who wasn't on live. Y'all better leave. Nah. Yeah, I know who Susan is. Yo, you all right? Yeah. All right, mother, go
What's the one thing
ahead.
you had when you were going through your time of grief that
What?
you didn't have? What's the one thing you wish that you had? What's the one thing that you wish that you had when you were in your moment of grief, whether it's right after or to present
Right after
day?
my son, if I would have had somebody else who'd been through that, if I'd have had somebody there that been through that, and I didn't have nobody there that went through it. Nobody in my family went through it. Yes, they were there with my mother, but that was a whole different story. My mother was killed by a drunk driver, and that's a whole different, another feeling. But I wish I would have had another parent that would have
Yes.
stepped up and said, "Hey, let me talk to you," you know, because you, like I was telling Tiffany early, you don't know the pain until you go through the pain.
That's right.
You can lose a child that
Right.
was sick in the hospital. There's a difference between losing a child that has been sick. You can prepare yourself for that. But when you have lost a child and it's been snatched from you, that's
Yes.
a whole different feeling. You know, and I wish I would have had somebody who was there that had somebody snatched from them that could have helped me stand up a little bit more. I had to be, to me, it was like I had to be strong. When it happened with my kids, with my son, I didn't cry at all.
Mhm.
When they came and told me that my son had got shot, I was at the laundromat. And when my daughter came in from out of Georgia, from out of the blue, just visit out of the blue. She just showed up. Okay, you visiting? What you here for? Not knowing that she was here to prepare me, to help me with this, you know. But I was at the laundromat, and when they came and told me, I was like, oh, okay. This what I said. I said, okay, let's go to the hospital. No problem. Just like that. And when I got up to the hospital, it was like the security guy was there, and I was like, I need to go in there. He was like, you can. I said, oh yeah, I am. And it didn't hit me. When it hit me, it was 3 days later. 3 days later, you know, because I'm used to him knocking on my door at 2:30 in the morning. Ma, let me in. And I realized that he wasn't knocking no more. And that's when I realized it. But I wish I would have had somebody there who was there, who had been through it, to say, this is the steps that's going to happen. But I had nobody there.
Yeah.
There was nobody there to say, okay, let me help you out. Nobody.
Right.
I did it on my own.
So Patrick and Craig, based on, so Julius is saying he needs more like some peace, a place of refuge. Mario needed a support system that's been through the same thing. How can we develop something that can, because, you know, we got COVID, people are losing family members from COVID. That's a whole nother grieving process. And grief is grief. I don't care if you lost a marriage, a child, a job that you've been on for 20 years, you're going to go through some sort of grieving process. And you're right. The Black community needs therapy. And we need to learn how to, you know, utilize our coping mechanism. What can we do? I mean, like, what can we do to help? Like, I know, you know, we do need Utica, New York definitely needs another community center in that aspect. But what can we do now, being that, you know, it's COVID, you know, people are not really going anywhere right now. I see you, Julius. What can we do as a community to move forward with, you know, helping our community heal from grief of lost ones?
What I, Julius Peak. What I would say, we need a building. Like if we had a building, we can have all that in one.
Yeah.
We need our own building. We don't need, we need to go in and just get our own. If we start a funding, if we come up with a fund, okay. If we start a funding and come up with our own money, starting with 10,000 and see where the support coming. If you want better for your kids, you will chip in on it. We don't want all your money. Let's do it for ourselves so we can have our own. And it don't matter what color it is. Everybody is welcome. You know what I'm saying? But we got to do it ourselves. So we'll be running our own organization, or however y'all say it. We'll be running our own. That's what I think. We got counselors in there. Got counselors in there for when kids going through. We got counselors in there for death situations. We need our own, point blank. Like they said, they want to charge you just to hold this spot for 2 hours or 3. No, that's why we need our own. You know what I'm saying? Own for everything. We got a place where people can go to everything. After repast big enough, our own. You know what I'm saying? All we need is 2 floors. We don't need no 5 floors, 6 floors. We need 2 long floors with everything from the basement on up in it. And we'll be good.
Yeah. So Julius, let me respond to that. Our organization, Rebuilding the Village, that's our mission. So our mission is social justice. Our mission is to revive the community. And we respond to all of the issues that come up in our community as they come up. Because we're talking about the violence right now. We're talking about the gun violence. We're talking about how do we heal? How do we get the support we need when we need to people to come around that we can talk to? Like Muriel was saying, if she had somebody who had already gone through what she was going through, that would have given her a level of support that she didn't have. But if we had a place to assemble, then we would better understand that there are people out there that have gone through what she went through. But we don't have a place where we come together, or we can come together, that we own, that we can come together in the hours and at the times that we need to, and provide the services that our people actually need, not the services that somebody decided we need or think we need. And so, so when services grow out of authenticity, because there's a need there, right now what we're doing is we're helping people who are facing eviction. And often, although there are services out there for people to try to help them not to be evicted or to become homeless, sometimes our people fall between the cracks because they don't really understand where those resources are. They don't understand how to get to some of the agencies. Some of them don't even know what those agencies are. So what we do is act as sort of a triage or a broker in terms of helping people find the services that they need. And we act as advocates for when people don't have a voice. Sometimes we can be that voice. Often Patrick will step in and talk to people that an ordinary citizen would be able to talk to, on behalf of that person. So we are trying to do that, but that building is essential. We have to find a way to get the building because that's the only way we can go forward on this work.
Alberta,
is there a current plan of action in place?
Is there a plan of action?
Plan of action?
Well, we are incorporated. Right now, under the pandemic, we're operating basically on this kind of platform that we're on right now. When people reach out to us, if people call and ask for help, we go to them, or we bring them to my house, or we meet in the park, or whatever we have to do to get the work done.
That's why we need that building, man.
Yeah, but
like that.
but Not having the building is not stopping us, but the building is essential. And the plan of action is just to raise the dollars. And we get donations, but
Money.
we don't
Money.
get the kind of money that we need to actually secure a building. That's going to take a lot of support from the community. If we're going to do it ourselves, that means we need the community to step up and give us the kind of support that we need to even find that structure, to even find that building.
Gotta get on our feet. Gotta get on our feet.
I have one question that I think is going to be really important that ties in with this call, especially what's going on in our community, what's going around the country with gun violence every day. So many times the families, the persons, the individuals that are grieving turn to retaliation to help numb the pain.
Yes.
So I want to ask the question: what are some alternatives that you all can share that will help someone who may be watching tonight? So those that want to go out and hurt someone because they're hurting, what are some things, or who can they turn to? And I want to ask that question and start with Patrick.
Yeah, Tiffany, that's a really good question, and it's so relevant. They call it triggering events. So sometimes, and that's why, let me just give a quick statistic that I got very recently. Since November, there have been about 145 calls to the police department of shots fired. Can you imagine that? 145 incidents of shots fired. 9 people have been shot, and we've had 3 homicides just since November. A lot of that is, I shot somebody in somebody's family, and now they're coming for some of my people. So that retaliation. And a couple of things that I would ask people to think about, that it's never just about you and the individual you're targeting. It's about your family, their family, and the families that they're connected to. So right now, our community is being held hostage by people who have not figured out an alternative. It takes the hand of God and the village to say, please, you're talking about, I tell people, if you like fried chicken, and particularly to the brothers, we talking about the Black community, if you like fried chicken and your girlfriend and your wife and your kids, do not pull the trigger, because they are not serving that in the penitentiary. You cannot pull your car up in the penitentiary. They're not serving fried chicken the way we make it. And if you are lucky enough to have a visit, that will be now and then. And this is where the group therapy comes in at. And I'll make this quick. And I can only say this from my own experience. We've all experienced pain at some point, whether it's losing a family member to gun violence, some problem that we couldn't overcome, somebody that we lost, drug addiction or whatever. There's nothing like, even if it's a small group. And Tiffany and Alberta, this answers both of your questions. We have to figure out, and I'm not talking about a big church or anything. Sometimes it's 6, 8, or 10 people coming together and hearing somebody else's pain to say, how did you get through that? So there's real value. There's real value in hearing how somebody else worked through something. And I could say that in as much as I don't like to, but having overcome or working through certain addictions, hard drugs, and thinking that I would never get through that, and somebody saying, PJ, I did it. It's one day at a time. So the rage and the anger that you feel now, one day at a time, talking to other people, because you don't get through it by yourself. We don't have the answer. And so we have to be able to count on other people in the community. One of the brothers that was most useful to me, he didn't have a PhD, he didn't have a master's degree, but he went through that same jungle of the streets of drug dealers, guns, prostitutes, pimps, all of that stuff that that is engaged in this thing that we're calling around gun violence right now. And usually we don't find our way out of that until we're locked up or somebody is snatching you up off of the streets to say you will do this, that, or the other. And so my point is, the group therapy, if we can find our way to that person or those group or those people, and some of the hardest brothers, the most gangster brothers who want to retaliate, if somebody can reach them, and they are reachable. Yeah, we put up a hard exterior, but Tiffany, I'm going back to your question, which is a really good one. I would say, if you don't want to find your way to the graveyard or the penitentiary, take a deep breath and find somebody to talk to. And yeah, that's why we, the Rebuilding the Village and the street team, or somebody that you look up to. If you're not going to come to Craig Grant, Julius, or Mrs. Hamilton, or somebody, find somebody that you respect that's level-headed, because when you find yourself behind bars, almost always people would say, I wish I would have done something different. And I could say that from being on the streets for 19 years. I thought I would, and I'm going to say this and exit off the conversation, but I have to keep it real. After using hard drugs for 19 years, I thought I would never get off of drugs. I thought I would never get off. And then when I was in that penitentiary for a whole year, I was ready to step back to the streets and do it all over again until somebody said there's a different way. And it was one day at a time. And I could say 25 years later, I don't know what'll happen tomorrow, but 25 years later, I've never had a drink. I haven't had those drugs that I used to use. And I'm not bragging. I'm saying that to the person who needs to hear it, who doesn't think that there's another way. The streets are an addiction. It's sweet when everything is going good. It's sweet when you're making big money. It's sweet when you're going to the drug house and getting your drugs, and the pimps and the prostitutes. All of that brings a certain kind of energy until somebody you care about or you get shot or somebody gets locked up, and there's a sober reality that is very painful. And so there's a lot of shame and complexity that's affiliated with this grief too. Guilt, anger, rage, retaliation. And I'm saying to our people, I would say it to anybody, but I'm especially saying it to our people, the things that we're doing, it's not working right now. The amount of people that have been hurt, and I'm sorry, I'll end right now. I'm just saying that there is an alternative. Find somebody that you can talk to.
Can I say,
You are 110%.
Julia said about the community coming together. One thing I learned about the Black community in Utica, I'm talking about in Utica. One thing I learned about the Black community in Utica, when one group is trying to start something and we're trying to bring a community together, our leaderships are crabs. I'm just being honest. We got some leadership that is powerful, awesome Black leadership in the city of Utica, but they are a bucket of crabs. If they didn't think about the project or they didn't think about what was going on, they'd try to pull it down, talk about you, they'll snatch you down. Oh, she ain't no good, they ain't no good, because they didn't come up with the idea. When are we going to start as a Black community in leadership to stop pulling our own people down and being a bucket of crabs?
That's part of the problem, Mary.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
Let me say something.
Talk about Patrick, Craig, Julius, Tiffany and her husband, Black leadership talking about these people that I'm looking at right now. It shouldn't be that way. We are a Black community. Right. We are a city of Utica that have Black people that have good education, good thoughts, good talent, but we are a bucket of crabs pulling each other down. That's why Utica don't get nowhere. And that's why the white community look at us like, let them destroy their own self.
Yeah, and they did destroy.
You know, that's
very
sad but true. Let me get to some comments real quick. Real quick. Somebody
Be
said,
real.
I've seen a comment I want to hear. One comment says, we need to educate our people more so they can help themselves better. There's a lot of information that needs to be shared, and we need our own everything in the community. There was no one. And she also says, if this was a fight video, you would have 1,000 viewers. This is a new generation, needs a whole different approach. And I agree with that. I think the ones that sometimes needs to hear the information, we're not reaching them. And as much as I hate to agree with you, Mariel, you're right. There is a crab mentality in Utica, but at the same time, we recognize that there's a problem. We know that there's an issue. We know that gun violence is in every community around the world, and we need to do something. You know, we have mothers hurting, fathers hurting, cousins, uncles. You know, you're losing one to prison and one to the graveyard. We already know what the outcome of the streets are, and something has to be done. What? That's why we all here. We just trying to figure out. You know, the goal of obtaining a building is a very good goal, but right now we need to. What can we do right now in this world of virtual? We have computers. We have virtual reality.
I have a son. I could take my son. My son spent 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison. He got out. I shipped him to Georgia. I'm not bragging about him, but he went there. He changed his life. He has a program called Dare to Be Different. And he started off little bit.
But Georgia is one of those states that you can do that in.
But he started here, Alberta. And nobody like
Georgia still got that love.
No. But now, but he's trying, Julius, I want to hook you up with him because he wants to bring it to Utica. I'm gonna hook you up with him. And his program is Dare to Be Different. And he's in the community, but he got into the school system.
Yeah, yep. I talked to him in the beginning when he did that. That's why I said we need our
own. Hook up with Patrick, Craig, Julius, because he was just telling me he wants to bring it to Utica, but he don't know who to reach out to. So I want him to reach out to y'all because we do need it. And but we can't come to our young people as bulls. You know what I mean? Bull in the China cabinet. You can't come to them. You got to meet them where they at. Hey, bro. Hey, sis. Let me talk to you. Let me chill with you. You can't come to them as a bull. And that's what a lot of communities and leaders is doing, is coming to our young people and our young men as bulls. You can't do that. You can't. You get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. You can't come at them with a vinegar mentality because the first thing you do, they're gonna turn away.
Straight knee activity in the city.
Well, you are 110% right, and I think you should connect your son to anyone that's on this panel, and we'll have a conversation. Some people may complain, oh, we need more than a conversation. We have to start somewhere. When you talk about things, ideas come into play, and then a plan of action come into play. And I'm all about action. So I'm gonna let I thank you guys so much for participating on this panel. I'm sure your story has touched someone and embraced them in a way that we may never know. I definitely feel empowered, and I will continue to educate myself on the grief process. If at any time any one of you need a call, Julius, need a call, need somebody to talk to or a shoulder, I am available. I am available to you. Stop.
That making me laugh.
I'm sorry, I'm available to you. I can't do anything else. I definitely, like I said, I'll lift you up in prayer. But Mario, let's try to bring your program virtual. Yes. I'll be a support system to you. I don't know what I can do, but whatever. We'll try to do something virtually, especially now. We're going to be in COVID for another year or so. And there's people still losing their loved ones to gun violence. So I'm willing to offer my support any way that I can. And I'm gonna let Patrick and Greg close us out with our departing statements.
Can I say something? Let's not forget what's gonna happen in the next couple of days. Let's not forget about that. Pay attention to that.
What did you say, Julius?
I said, let's not forget what's about to happen in the next couple of days. So let's pay attention to that also.
Yes. That's right.
And let's also continue. These virtual programs. They may not be in the building, but they are programs, and let's keep them organized. So when it's time for us to get this building, we already have things in place to put in them. We have I'm sorry, I don't remember what you said your program was called. We have all those programs. We have a place of refuge. We have those things already put together, so we can go in, kick in the door, ready to help heal the community. And before I forget, I want to say happy birthday to Patrick.
Happy birthday, Patrick.
Happy birthday, Patrick. TJ.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much for all that you do in the community.
You're so thoughtful.
Thank you so much for all you do in the community. And
I appreciate
it. If you don't have any other day, you need to be acknowledged today. So have a blessed birthday. And I'm gonna let you take it out with a closing statement.
Oh, that's so nice of you. I'm thinking, first of all, Tiffany and Alberta, again, thank you for the platform. I'm gonna keep saying you ladies need to go national, and maybe you will. Yes. So thank you for allowing the platform for the conversation. You truly are the queens of conversation. And I want to acknowledge the other panelists and your listeners. I just want to say encouragement is so important. I remember one of my coaches told me, he said, Patrick, shoot the freaking ball. He pulled me out the game to tell me to shoot the ball. And after he said that, but he was really encouraging me. And I ended up scoring 32 points. Now, it's a personal story, but my point is this. Sometimes simple, genuine encouragement. And Muriel is right. We have a problem in our community, even if people are not aware of it, how easy it is to tear somebody down. And that's the only reason why I shared the story about how powerful, when you genuinely empower somebody and say, you can do it, and how can I help? Especially if you see talent in somebody, that encouragement could be the difference between life and death and telling somebody not to pull that trigger. I know grief is hard, and we all have to deal with it. And sometimes we need human support. I still can hear the old folks saying, walk with the Lord in the Bible scripture and all of that. But sometimes we need a little team behind us and saying, you know what, I've been right where you were, and you can get through this. And sometimes it's hard to see that when you are burdened by so many problems and issues. But I'm just here to say that we can do it as a community. We're not going to be here forever. And you'll be surprised where your help is coming from. It may not always be that person that's on top of the mountain. Sometimes the person that them words of wisdom might come from that drunk across the street that's out of their mind in the moment, but they're wise enough to say something to you, and the Spirit of God will trigger and say, you know what, that's right, and it'll set you on the course. Yes. So you never know. Be careful who you talk about and who you dismiss. So I thank all of you. I consult with Mrs. Hamilton regularly. I consult with Julius from time to time, and Craig. And I'm just simply saying that encouragement is so important. It's an immune booster. It boosts our level of energy. So yeah, the ghetto's in need of therapy, and let's figure out how we support one another. I thank you, all of you, for the birthday wishes. And I'm gonna wake up. Today's my birthday, but you know what? Tomorrow it's not my birthday. I gotta live. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna pray and ask God to give me my marching orders in this crazy world of ours. But I have hope. I have hope, and that's what I want to extend to the people. You'd be surprised where you can go with just a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, that is my last thing. I just want to say, we shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Yes, yes.
It might take us a little longer to get there, but we shall overcome, and we're going to do it. And so again, thank you to our listeners. Thank you everybody for participating in the chat. Is there anything you want to say, Cream, before we end?
No, I just want to again extend our thanks, and again, our prayers are with you and our community. Thank you.
Just want to say
Thank
thank you for
you.
inviting me. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know it was last minute. We really appreciate.
That's okay.
Thank you guys.
Mario was strong tonight, boy. Mario.